It's like Christmas Day for you.
Welcome to MojoPlays, and today we're looking at the highest selling console of all time and going deep. With 160 million units sold, you'd think we'd know everything about the PS2, but maybe not. These are 25 things you didn't know about the PS2. Let's go. Before we continue, we publish content all week long, so be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified of our latest videos. Legally changing name.
Sorry, Grandma.
I'm putting this one first, not because it's not hilarious, but because it's not technically about the PS2 itself, just PS2 adjacent. We've all done some questionable things for the stuff we love. But have you ever loved something so much you changed your name for it? No, I wasn't talking to you, Nintenlith Gamillion Cubus III. Back in 2002, a British man named Dan Holmes loved his PlayStation 2. He loved it so much, he legally renamed himself Mr. PlayStation 2. Yep, government ID and all. He even asked the church if he could marry his PS2, which is disgusting, as it wasn't even 18 until 2018. One v3. The PlayStation 2 was Sony's follow-up to the original PlayStation, the cooler older sibling that got all the attention. It was part of the 6th generation of consoles, launched to go head-to-head with Sega's Dreamcast, which hit Japan in 1998. But did you realize the PS2 took out multiple generations? It ended up taking on the Nintendo GameCube and the original Xbox, both of which dropped in 2001. Meanwhile, the poor Dreamcast got discontinued that same year, waving goodbye to the console war like, it's fine, I didn't want to be successful anyway. That moment officially marked the end of Sega's career as a console maker. Sony didn't just beat Sega, they took their ball home. Different colors.
Why don't you make yourself useful? My darn green eco-collectors are clogged up again.
PS2 games could come on both CD-ROMs and DVDs, but many didn't realize that they were all color-coded. The CDs were blue, and the DVDs were silver. Talk about fancy color coding. It's like Sony wanted your game collection to double as a mood ring. And this wasn't their first time getting artsy with discs. Remember the original PlayStation? Those game CDs were black. How emo. Where are you?
Rule number 1, I don't date animals.
A flying start. Everyone knows the PS2 was a beast in sales and performance, proving to be arguably the greatest console of all time. But did you know that within one day, they had demolished sales most consoles only dream of? The Nintendo GameCube maybe cracked 500,000 units after day one, numbers vary. The PS2, 1 million units sold on day one. Whoa.
Found a couple of suckers.
Yeah. Do we have sucker written all over us?
Earth and space. Sony's always been a bit poetic when it comes to their consoles. They can't just make a system, they have to give it meaning, or a weird baby mannequin commercial. Remember the PS1 logo? Those colorful shapes were supposed to represent joy, passion, and excellence, basically the emotional range of Crash Bandicoot. Then came the PS2 logo, which went a different direction. Gone with the bright colors, in came a sleek design that looked like it belonged on the poster for a sci-fi horror flick. Turns out, that was kind of the point. The blue font represents Earth, and the black background symbolizes the vast emptiness of space. Very deep. Literally.
Welcome to the 3rd place.
PlayStation 2! The 3rd place!
Remember the towers. If there's one thing everyone remembers about the PS2, it's that iconic intro screen. Those mysterious white towers surrounded by glowing orbs. Pure magic. Turns out those skyscrapers actually represented your memory card save files. The more saves you had, the taller and denser the skyline. I didn't even realize it was changing. Imagine applying that same idea today with consoles that come with 500 gigabytes or more. You create a goddamn city.
5.73.
She's also in charge of recording your mission data. Whenever you want to save, send a message over the reserved save frequency, 140.96.
It can connect to the PSP.
Check out this sweet game I got.
That ain't built for big boy games. That's built for texting your grandma and calling your girl.
You text your grandma?
Of course I do. And for $9.99, you could be playing this on a PSP.
The PSP is my favorite handheld console of all time, which is controversial apparently, but I loved it. I know it was wildly outsold by the DS, but my brothers were already beating me up for not playing Call of Duty, so I couldn't be caught playing Animal Crossing. Not again. My original thought with the PSP was that its graphics and gameplay matched the PS2, with most games looking even better, which is wild considering I could play it on the toilet. But the connections are even more substantial. Did you know that you could actually connect with the PlayStation 2? Yep, the two systems could talk to each other. Titles like SOCOM, US Navy SEALs Combined Assault, and Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater unlocked special content for the PSP versions, and in Metal Gear Solid 3 Subsistence, you could even transfer in-game photos to view in Metal Gear Acid 2. Everyone was too busy connecting to their PS3, not realizing the PS2 was quietly sitting in wait.
1. Spread your wings and fly. God be with you.
PC, Mac, and PS2.
This is Linux for the PlayStation 2, which was an official product released by Sony in 2002.
The development kit for the PS1, the Net Euros, or Net Eurosi, was basically a playground for hobbyist programmers, allowing anyone to make games. While the indie scene wasn't quite the powerhouse it is today, it was still a pretty generous move on Sony's part. Then came the PS2, and Sony decided to level up the DIY game dev experience. In came the PS2 Linux kit, which turned your humble PlayStation into a full-blown personal computer. The kit came with a Linux OS disk, a 40GB hard drive, a USB keyboard and mouse, a network adapter, and even an installation disk. With this setup, you could browse the internet, code your own games, and even pretend you were a real developer. How cool.
Runtime environment. So put that disk into the machine. We'll watch it start up.
Crazy compatible. Buying a new console usually means saying goodbye to your old one, like sending your childhood pet to live on a farm. I'm still not over my PSP, but the PS2 made this pain easier to bear with backwards compatibility. You could pop in your PlayStation 1 games and relive the polygonal glory days right on your shiny new PS2. But did you know the backwards compatibility went a step further? It supported PS1 accessories like memory cards and DualShock controllers. The secret sauce behind it all was the Emotion Engine, the PS2's powerful CPU that made this compatibility possible. The emotion that engine cured was depression. Don't forget how small it was. Many have forgotten, or just didn't realize entirely, that the standard PlayStation 2 memory card had a whopping, drumroll please, 8 megabytes of storage. Yep, 8 MB. That's less than a single photo on your phone today. Back then though, it felt like holding the power of the universe in your hands. You'd save Grand Theft Auto San Andreas and still have space left over for a couple Tony Hawk runs. Living large. The original PS2 also came packed with 2 USB ports, a FireWire port for all 5 people who used it, and some models even had an expansion bay for a hard drive. Thanks Sony, because this helped me this year when I put all my PS2 games onto a hard drive for my PS2 so I could never change discs. PS2's ancestor. The sleek black design of the PS2 made it look less like a gaming console and more like something stolen off a sci-fi movie set. Love it or hate it, you can't deny that the PlayStation 2 is a stunning piece of tech. But here's the plot twist. That futuristic design wasn't 100% Sony's idea. Back in the early 90s, Atari released a personal computer called the Atari Falcon 030. It was a hit among amateur developers, but got discontinued in 1993. Before that, Atari had been cooking up an upgraded model, the Falcon 040. And guess what? That sleek prototype ended up inspiring the PS2's design. Look at them. It's wild. PlayStation 2 Online. When Xbox first launched with online multiplayer, it completely blindsided the gaming world. Sure, the Dreamcast technically had online play, but let's be honest, it was more please don't disconnect than next-gen experience. But did you know that 2 years after launch, Sony finally introduced proper online play for the PS2 with the network adapter? It plugged neatly into the back of the console. You could also connect via dial-up, but only for select games, and mostly for downloading stuff slower than a sloth on vacation. Games like Killzone and Final Fantasy XI became online hits, proving the PS2 could hold its own, even if its servers occasionally felt held together with duct tape and hope. A massive disk error code. Sony and scandals go together like consoles and overheating fans. It's just part of the package at this point. Remember the 2011 PSN hacking? That little incident where the personal data of 77 million users got compromised and everyone was locked out of the PlayStation Network? Remember that little thing? Remember that? Turns out Sony's drama didn't start with the internet age. Oh no. Back in 2002, the company got slapped with a class action lawsuit over the PS2 itself. Players kept getting the dreaded disc read error message, meaning their beloved game discs and DVDs were now fancy coasters. Some eventually settled, offering free repairs and a $25 check and a free PS2 game from a set list, which probably included a bunch of games nobody actually wanted.
Offline on April 20th after the intrusion was detected. Computer security companies have been analysing the attack, and its extent is still not clear.
The actual PlayStation War. This is a little more dark, but behind all the success of the PS2 was a story that most gamers never knew about. The PS2's hardware relied on a mineral called coltan, a key ingredient for making electronic components. The problem? Most of the world's coltan supplies come from Africa, particularly the Democratic Republic of Congo, where things were, well, not exactly ethically sourced. Local rebel groups in the Congo saw a golden, or rather metallic grey opportunity. They took control of the mines, forcing people to work in brutal conditions and committing horrific acts of violence, especially against women. Tragically, the demand for the consoles like the PS2 helped fund these rebel operations, even if unintentionally. PSP DualShock 2. The PSP was a nice leap forward in gaming from the PS2, but for all its brilliance, the PSP had one glaring flaw: no second joystick. That's right, gamers were forced to control the camera with either the shoulder buttons or the face buttons, depending on how much finger gymnastics they could handle. It was like trying to parallel park with one eye closed. Sony, being Sony, tried to fix it. Kind of. They filed a patent for an accessory that would let players connect a PS2 DualShock 2 controller to their PSP. Basically, it would have turned your sleek handheld into a tiny console booth that looked like something out of a gaming convention demo station. Portable? Sure, if your pockets were the size of a backpack.
Crowd patrol! Army!
PS2 HD without the MI. Before HDMI took over our living rooms and became the one cable to rule them all, we had standard definition cables, and even though there's a good chunk of under 30s who are just now realizing this, that's not the fact for this entry. The PlayStation 2's native resolution was a humble 480i, and we thought it was mind-blowing. But here's the fun bit of trivia: a few PS2 games actually supported 1080i. Yeah, you heard that right. High definition. Before it was cool. If you had the right component cables and enough patience, you could dive into the settings and menus and switch your game to 1080i mode. For example, Gran Turismo 4 would flex its 1080i muscles during races, but then sheepishly downgrade back to 480i in the menus, like a sports car that stalls at a red light. The PS2 that featured a video recorder.
So this is the Sony PSX DVR, a hybrid video game system and digital video recorder. My model, the DESR 5100, comes standard with a 160GB hard drive installed.
The PlayStation 2 wasn't just a console, it was an all-in-one entertainment hub before smart TVs thought they were special. But Sony wasn't done showing off. In 2003, they released the PSX, not to be confused with the nickname for the original PlayStation. This was a Japan-exclusive, supercharged PS2 that basically tried to be the Swiss Army knife of electronics. It had everything. a built-in hard drive, a DVD recorder, and even the cross-media bar XMB interface that would later make its way to the PSP and PS3. The thing overheated faster than your console during a 12-hour God of War session. Despite all its fancy bells and whistles, the PSX flopped harder than a failed boss run. It was discontinued barely a year later.
Cross Media Bar is a user interface that was used in both the Sony PlayStation 3 and PSP.
Dual Sensitivity 2.0. The DualShock 2 is one of those rare pieces of tech that quietly deserves a standing ovation. Sure, critics grumbled that it looked almost identical to the original DualShock, but don't let its familiar shape fool you. It was lighter than the original, and more importantly, it introduced analog button sensitivity. Basically, the harder you pressed a button, the more your in-game actions responded. Think of it like teaching a controller how to feel your emotions. The PS2's approach allowed for subtler control, and though few developers used it, the ones who did made magic happen. In Metal Gear Solid 2 and MGS3 Snake Eater, you could lightly press the square button to ready your weapon, then mash it harder to fire. Racing games also got in on the fun, using button sensitivity to fine-tune your acceleration and braking. No more flooring it and praying you don't spin out.
Floor to you, okay? Understood.
8 players.
Apparently not, Johnny. These intergalactic predators are known as the Skrull.
Many players realized at one point or another that some games supported 4 players. The problem was that the PS2 only came with 2 controller ports. It took most players years to discover the magic of the Multitap accessory. Plug it in and suddenly your PS2 could handle 4 additional controllers and memory card slots. But did you know that for some games, and if you had 2 multitaps, boom, up to 8 players and memory cards all at once. Instant party. It was perfect for sports games like NHL or Madden NFL, or for anyone who hated the constant memory card shuffle at the main menu. How the other half lived, eh? PS2 Brazil.
ClothMap came to Brazil with one goal in mind: to understand the country's parallel video game universe.
Ah, the PlayStation 2. Every owner remembers that magical first moment, that first Christmas, that first paycheck from their first job. But try asking your Brazilian friend about their first PS2 and you might get a very different story. Why? Because in Brazil, the console didn't officially arrive until 2009, nearly a decade after its original launch. That's right, while the rest of the world was already deep into GTA 4, Brazilian fans were just cracking into GTA 3. Before you start blaming Sony, the real culprit was Brazilian import taxes, which made electronics ridiculously expensive. Let's just say Brazilian gamers didn't get early adopter perks, they got late adopter, pay more perks.
To play an American cartridge, you need to buy an adapter. There was a lot of confusion back then. You would buy a magazine that said Nintendo games, but your console, it didn't say anything about Nintendo, so people were very confused and they started putting compatible with Nintendo.
Burned discs. Back in the days of the original PlayStation, players could play burned CDs without even touching their console, thanks to the legendary disc swap trick. When the PS2 came along, it was technically possible too, but now you had to play Surgeon and open the top of your console. Luckily, Swap Magic saved the day. Here's how it worked. First, you popped the Swap Magic disc into your PS2 and booted it up. Then, using a thin solid object, think credit card, butter knife, whatever wouldn't ruin your console, you manually pulled the tray and swapped in your burned discs. Boot the game from the Swap Magic menu and voila, instant gameplay. Who knew? Not me. PS2 with no TV. Thanks to its longevity, the PlayStation 2 got a treasure trove of third-party accessories that changed the way we use the console. But here's one you might have missed. Several companies tried their hand at making portable screens. Some were tiny and charming, like the original mini LCD, while others were basically PS2-sized monitors that could double as small TVs. Quality varied widely, but the small portable monitors, surprisingly solid. While we'll always prefer the big screen experience, it's fun to see creative companies breathing new life into one of Sony's most beloved consoles, making it almost portable.
Now when you're looking now in 2021 at this monitor, you are thinking, holy crap, this doesn't look that great.
All types of controllers. Most of us only ever knew the PS2 with the DualShock 2 in our hands, and honestly, no complaints. But no console has had as many weird officially released controllers than the PS2. When Resident Evil 4 hit the PS2, they officially licensed a chainsaw-like controller. Spooky, tactile, and a definite no-go for carry-on luggage. Then, for Onimusha 3 Demon Siege, they released the Soul controller, basically a katana-shaped controller that has the exact same issue. Clever concepts, sure. Practical, not so much. Pretty as a collector's item? Absolutely. PS2 had Netflix before it was cool. It's wild to think how Netflix completely changed the way we watch movies. Now it's basically baked into every smart TV. Most Sony players didn't have a Netflix app on their console till the PS4, but here's a fun little PS2 trivia bomb. Netflix was actually available on the PS2. Yep. Before you get excited, there's a catch. It was only in Brazil. Remember how the PS2 launched there in 2009? Remember that entry from before? By that point, Netflix had already switched to streaming, and since the PS2 couldn't download apps, Brazilian fans had to pop in a licensed Netflix DVD, connect to the internet, and then stream. Fancy. Actually, it's super not fancy. Long live the PS2.
It's like Christmas Day for you.
These days, most modern consoles have a lifespan of about 8 years before companies pull the plug. Sure, there are exceptions, just ask the Nintendo Wii U, which launched in 2012, flopped spectacularly, and was discontinued in 2017 right after the Switch swooped in to save Nintendo's reputation. Ouch. Then there's the opposite end of the spectrum, the PlayStation 2. This console was so successful, it stuck around for nearly 13 years, finally ceasing production in early 2013, the same year the PS4 hit the shelves. Its online services survived until 2016, proving that even in the age of PS4 and Xbox One, the PS2 was still kicking, baby. The PS2 lasted long enough to see entire console generations rise and fall, and honestly, we couldn't have asked for a more enduring friend. Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from MojoPlays and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified of our latest videos.